Hi everybody, welcome back to TDEC's virtual summer camp. We have been down on the Powell River and demonstrating our sampling methodologies, and now we're back in Johnson City and we're going to show you some of the things we collected. We do a lot of sampling in our job. We do chemical samples, which are important, but we also sample the insects. The chemical samples tell us what's going on in the river at the time that we take that sample. And it is important that we have that data, and we do a lot of sampling that way. But we also collect insects, and you may have seen that in our previous videos. We demonstrated how we go about doing that. And the insects are very important because they live there all the time in the stream. So they have to be able to adapt to whatever conditions are there. And we have a poster here that sort of indicates how we can tell the health of a stream according to what kind of insects we have living in a water body. You can see here that we have different kinds of insects that can tolerate different levels of pollution. Let's see, over here, well, in the middle here, we've got our most sensitive insects, our mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies, water pennies, mussels, that kind of thing, that live in our clean streams. And these insects like clean water conditions, and you won't find as many of them if you start having polluted conditions. Over here on this side, we have insects that are somewhat tolerant to environmental stresses or pollution. Let's see, we've got crane flies, hellgrammites, dragonflies, damselflies, crawdads, that kind of thing. And over here on the far side of our poster, we have insects that are quite tolerant to stressful polluted conditions like aquatic worms, scuds, leeches, sow bugs, that sort of thing. You will find all these insects in a healthy stream with predominance of these healthy insects typically. And if a stream becomes more and more polluted, you will start losing these insects here in the middle, and you'll get more of the insects that we have on either end. So that's one of the things that really helps us determine water quality when we're out collecting. And then we bring our samples back to the lab and we ID them using various keys, and we're going to demonstrate that for you here in just a minute. Hi, my name's Beverly and this is Franklin. We're back in Johnson City at our lab here in our office. I wanted to show you around, show you how we identify our insects once we collect them in the field. We use our microscopes here. We've got 3 different microscopes that we use. We come in and we put our insects under the microscope, and then we use our various keys to identify our insects. And the reason why that's important is each insect has different tolerances to pollution. So it's important that we identify them to genus so that we know how tolerant that particular insect is, so that we can make a determination as to how clean our water is. But we use our various keys. You can see here we've got different types of microscopes. This is an older microscope. It's an Olympus. We've used it a long time. It's a great scope. We use our forceps to move our insects around and to be able to identify them. And while we're looking at the insects, we're looking at our key to make a determination as to what we have here. So we spend lots of time back here identifying our insects. Have lots of different keys. We've got keys, very specific to, say, our riffle beetles, some of our mayflies, stoneflies, that kind of thing. So it can be very technical back here, but we enjoy the time that we spend back here on the microscopes. And we take it into the classrooms and show kids what we've got up under the microscope.
So as you can see here, taking a few of our insects that we found that we collected on the Powell River on our last series. Here's actually all the insects that we collected that day out of our biorecon sample. They're poured out into this little bowl so we can easily get to them. So we can't do all these insects at once. We have to take a few at a time. or one at a time to go through them. So it can be quite time intensive. But once we put them under the microscope, this is what we see. This particular microscope has a camera to it, so we can put it to a laptop or send it to. We can take it to a classroom for outreach, and we can show. We can put it on a projector and show all the kids and teachers exactly what we see under the microscope. These things are quite small, and it's real interesting to see under the microscope all the details and all how different all these insects are.
So what do we have here?
Here we have two separate mayflies. This is Isonichidae, Isonichia, and this is a Leptohyphidae. You can tell by the triangular operculate gills there. And this is a Elmidae, which is a type of a riffle beetle that we commonly find in our streams. All these are pretty, the ephemeropterans are indicators of, pretty good water quality. They're one of the more pollution intolerant insects. So if you have a bad stream, we start to lose these guys pretty fast. The riffle beetles, they're a little more tolerant, so we'll find them in a more wide range of streams. So we have all kinds of different ones that we've collected. Or we can show you some more if you'd like, or
Yeah, I think that would be great. So that way, how do we know that the stream, what do you do to give it a grade and know which stream is good?
Okay, so after we have identified all the insects, like Beverly says, we put them on those sheets, and depending on the community that we find there, it's all based off a reference stream that represented to all the ecoregions in Tennessee. So depending on how similar this sample is to a reference stream, we can tell if it's how impacted it is by whatever reason. This is an example of a key. So we can go to Ephemeroptera. So this is a dichotomous key. So we'll start at number 1, and they have just a description of what you might see under the microscope. The hard part of this job, probably the more technical part, is learning the terms in these keys. So basically how these keys work is you'll go through the first section in number 1, and if it looks, you agree with that, then it's this. If not, you'll go to the second section, and you'll go to number 2, and so forth and so on until you actually find what it is. So one of our bugs actually is the Leptohyphidae here that we have on the screen. So when it tells you to go to couplet 96, so you'll have to go all the way to 96, which is right here. And you'll do this, and then you'll start again.
So it's kind of like a flow chart.
Yes.
That you flow until you find out it's a yes or no, and then you go on to something else if it isn't a match for the one that you pulled out.
Each couplet has a description of what you're looking for under the microscope, and it gets more specific and more specific. It narrows it down until you've come out to a specific genus or family. And sometimes the bugs might be damaged, or if they're if they're early instars, which are freshly hatched, then they don't develop all the characteristics that you actually need to identify them. So you might not be able to identify them all the way down to genus, but most certainly we can get them to family, which is fine. That all helps in our calculations and when we put all those in our metrics.
So how long do you think, start to finish, you get these samples back into the lab, how long to identify all of those?
Depends on the amount of bugs we have and the different, how many different types of bugs we have. A lot of times you might just have, 10 different taxa and it doesn't take that long, or you could have 40 some taxa and it'll take, hours to do that. And it's a collaboration. Me and Beverly and Brian, you saw he sits back here too. I mean, we're all the time talking to each other. We've been doing this 15, 20 years, and we don't know everything. I mean, we're still learning every day back here. So, and if we don't see something, what do you think this is? Do you see this? So we're all the time talking back and forth. We're trying to get it right, or make her, try to get it the best we can. But it's really fun. I mean, this is probably the most technical part of our job that we do. But it's really interesting, and it's really a good time, especially if you enjoy, looking at these things, which most people do once they actually see it and, understand the difference and just the diversity that's out there in our streams. We're just going to show you a couple more little things that we found on the Powell River that day. This guy up at the top, he's a Trichoptera, a Hydrocycadae. You can tell by all the gills that are underneath his ventral gills tufts there. They're one of the big three, I guess. The Ephemeroptera, Plecoptera, and Trichoptera are the three most sensitive taxa we have. So those are the very important bugs that we find, the three orders, the EPTs. This guy's one of the T's, a Trichopteran. This guy down here, he's a Dipteran, which is a family of the flies. He is a Simulidae. They have these cool little labral fans. They use their filter feeders, so they use those labral fans to catch their food, which is pretty cool. And they cling to the bottom. They get these little crochet hooks down at the bottom of on their body, and they'll stick to rocks and debris or sticks or whatever, and they float around and filter the water as it passes by.
So do these live in healthy streams?
You'll find them yes, you can find them in healthy streams, but you can also find them in less healthy streams too. These are one of the more tolerant Trichopterans that we actually find, because they do have all these gills. They're able to take a little more oxygen. If the oxygen levels get low, you'll find them a little more commonly than some of the other Trichopterans that are more intolerant. These guys you'll find quite often in good streams and in not so healthy streams. Here, let's move this. See if we can get something else up here. This is always a fan favorite here. This guy is a type of beetle, Sphenidae. Normally, a common name is the water peonies. These guys they're clingers. They get flat on the rocks and stuff. They're pretty cool little guys. They're real thin. Let's see if we can flip him over and look at his underside. There you go. And you can see his head, his legs, and he's got gills down here. So that's what he looks like underneath. Almost turtle-like or horseshoe crab looking. This is an oligocete, which is just a common worm that most people see. They think of earthworm looking. These guys you'll find them a lot in one of the when a stream starts going bad, they're really pollution tolerant. So you'll find these guys in pretty big numbers once you start getting into the more unhealthy streams that we find. Streams with a lot of sediment in them, mud, muck, stuff. So, I mean, just because we find them in intolerant, in pollution streams, we still can find them in very nice streams too. So it all depends on the community, how many of each bug we find of each type and stuff. So it's not just based on one bug; it's based on the community that we find. This guy right here, it's a little hard to see. Light shining through. He's a type of stonefly, Pteronarcidae. I always like these guys. These are one of my favorites. When we get these, they're almost prehistoric looking. All these spines and these big gill tufts and stuff, and they can get quite large. Half an inch or so. They're one of the larger stoneflies that we find. So, but he's one of the plecopterans, so he's one of the peas that people like to find. We like to see.
So ergonomically, how is it being able to look at the insects like on a screen rather than looking through the microscope?
I prefer using just the scope instead of the screen. Try to use the camera, as more of a teaching tool. I can take if I have a question of a bug, I'm not seeing something right, or if it's a new bug nobody's ever seen, I can actually take a picture of it with the camera and send it to other experts across the state who might be able to help me out. So that's a great tool for us to have too. We don't have to ship the actual specimen itself to them, so we can just take a snapshot. But I prefer just using the microscope. It's faster. I can both hands and eyes, and there is a little bit of lag time using the camera. It's a little inintuitive. I guess once you get used to working under the microscope, it becomes a little inintuitive to try to use it. But if I'm seeing something, because two people can't look through the microscope at once. So if I'm trying to show Beverly something, I can pull it up on this, and I can look at this spine right here. Are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing? What do you think this is? So it makes it a lot easier collaboration if you're doing that, or teaching somebody. But I encourage every one of you to go out, and next time you're in a stream, and flip over a rock, pick up a rock and flip it over and see what you see. You'll probably pick up a few of these guys. So.
Thank you so much for letting us share your lab today with the virtual summer camp.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, guys.